Today we're going to have some fun making some floating ornaments. For our project today, you will need a Cricut machine, and it doesn't matter what Cricut machine you have, you'll be able to do this project. You'll also need some fillable ornaments, make sure they're disc shape, and some transparency film. Now, if you don't have transparency film or you don't have time to go out and get some, what you could do is, if you have an old Cricut mat laying around, you can take that protective cover off and we can cut that up for this project. And that's going to be a great way to reuse that protective film over your mats. You'll also need some adhesive vinyl. Again, it doesn't matter what type you choose. You'll need some transfer tape and a weeding pen. If we're just meeting right now, my name is Nisha. Welcome to Little Craft Nest. And today I'm going to walk you through step by step on how to make these really fun floating ornaments. So let's jump onto the computer and get started. The first thing we're going to do is open a new project in Cricut Design Space, and then we're going to make our template, and I promise that this is easy. So we're going to grab a shape, we're going to select the circle, and we're going to move this on our screen, and I'm going to resize this. So right now Design Space has this at 2 inches. The bulbs I'm using are 3 inches, but I'm going to make our circle 2.9 inches. Now earlier I did a few test cuts of my template just to make sure the size I'm making will fit in the ornaments I'm using. So let's go back to shapes, and this time we're going to select a square. Now we can resize this square, we'll make it smaller here, and we're going to put this right at the top of our circle, and this is creating a little tab. Now if you want, you can measure the opening space of your ornament to make sure that you didn't create your tab too big or too small. So my square here has a width of 0.678, and I have the top 3/4 of this tab going above the circle. So once you have it there, you can select both your circle and your square, go up to align and center horizontally. And then we're going to go down to the bottom and click on combine and unite. And that has now merged those 2 layers together. So our template right here is going to be cut out of our transparency film. So this is going to be clear, not a dark gray. So let's make it a little lighter, and I'll change the color and we'll just put it as a light gray, but we know this is actually going to be clear. We still want to be able to see it on our screen. Now, depending on the size of bulb you are using, you may need to adjust the size of your shape. All Christmas bulbs are created slightly different, so go ahead and do a few test cuts on paper and see if they fit inside your ornament. So if you had a 3-inch bulb, you can maybe do a test cut at 3 inches, at 2.9 and 2.8. Just like I have done, I found the 3-inch width kind of made my paper curl inside my bulb. The 2.8 was kind of loose inside my bulb, and the 2.9 seemed to fit quite well. So that's the size I am going with for the bulbs I'm using. Now, all we need to do is add an image to our bulb. So I'm going to go over to upload, and I have previously uploaded a few different Christmas designs. So I'm going to click on view all, and I'm going to search my images and type out Christmas. And I'm going to select this one here and click add to canvas, and we'll add a few more to the canvas as well. And then we can go back to our canvas. And we have a number of files here, so I'm going to shrink them down. I got all these images from design bundles in one big bundle, so I will leave these designs linked down below in the description. So if you're interested in them, you can find them as well. And if you're not sure how to upload designs to Cricut Design Space, I do have a video on that, and I'll leave that link below in the description as well. All right, I have chose 6 designs here. So we're going to make 6 different ornaments. So I'm going to grab our template and duplicate that 5 times. So if you click on the designs I opened, you'll notice they're grouped together. But if I were to make it right now, let me just show you, they are going to cut out in all separate pieces. So we need to unite our layers together. So let's cancel this. And I'm going to click on each of these SVGs that I uploaded, go down to combine and click on unite. So I'll click on my next image, do the same thing, combine, unite. And now all we need to do is size our images down. And one way to do that is go up to the top to size, and we can size that down to 2.9, and then drag your image on top of one of the templates and make sure it fits. So I'm going to zoom in here, and you can see how the stars are going over the template. So we need to size this down a little more. So I'm just going to grab the corners here and shrink my design a little bit until it fits inside my template. And that's perfectly okay if you have a little gap at the bottom, because remember our background is transparent. So that's not going to be a big deal. So if you want to make it even smaller than this, you can do it like that, or you can make it slightly bigger. And then you're just going to do the same thing with all your other designs. You're going to place it on top, and you can shrink your design down to your desired size. Now you can have it fit perfectly in line. This one has a nice little circle curve at the bottom, so you can get that to almost match perfectly. But again, that's not necessary. You can have a bit of a gap there as well. So I'm just going to size the rest of my images here, and then we'll go ahead and click on Make It. And Design Space has changed a little bit, so it doesn't say make it anymore, it just says make. All right, so I have sized all my ornaments now, so let's go ahead and click on make. So on our first mat, we have our transparency film, and then on our second mat, we have our designs. Now, Design Space has put these very close together on the mat. So if you wanted to, you could spread them out a little bit, and that way they'll be easier to weed. When I take my vinyl off the mat, I'm going to cut between each of these designs and weed them out separately. These are very, very tiny designs, and sometimes it can be tricky to weed, so we're just going to be careful with this. Now for our transparency film, our sheets are 8.5 by 11. So you want to make sure that all of these will fit on your sheet. So right now, if I put my transparency film on my mat horizontally, they will all fit. So let's go ahead and click on continue. Then click browse all materials and search for transparent, and select this one at the bottom that says transparency, and then click done. So we're going to cut these out with the transparency setting, and then after those are cut out, we'll go back onto Design Space, and for our design here, we'll change that to a vinyl setting. Let's load our mats and get this cut out. So these cut out really nice here, and they seem to be hard to peel off the mat because I'm using a brand new mat. So I'm going to use my spatula to give me a hand here. And there we have our first template. So for our designs here, I'm going to do something a little crazy and use Tech Wrap's Pearl Vinyl, which is kind of like a glitter vinyl. And it may be a little more difficult to weed than your regular vinyl, especially when working with small designs, but we're gonna try it out. So for the base material, I'm actually gonna set this to holographic vinyl. So I'm selecting here, holographic sparkle vinyl. So let's cut it out and see if we're able to weed these designs. So my designs are all cut out, but because I'm using this textured multicolor vinyl, it's really difficult to see the lines. So I'm gonna try to take this off the mat. And then I'm gonna try to cut in between each design without actually cutting the design. So let's see if I can do this. Having an overhead light really helps to be able to see those design lines. All right, so my first one is weeded out. It is difficult to see, so if you do have a light pad, you can use that, or just have really good overhead lighting, and you should be able to weed it. Now, if you want something that's less complicated to weed, use a plain color and not something that's multicolor and sparkly. So I'm gonna finish weeding the rest of these, and then we'll apply them to our templates. So I finished weeding all these out. That took me so much faster than I expected. I just love this vinyl. A little tricky to see, but it works really well. I did lose a few stars on some of these designs just because they were so tiny. And this design had that dotted edge around it, and I just decided to get rid of it because it was a little too tricky to keep each of those little dots. So I'm going to grab some strong grip transfer tape just because this is textured vinyl, and we're going to apply these to our templates. So I have a small piece of transfer tape here. I'm just going to take the backing off and apply it over our design. Gonna scrape that on there a few times, and then we're just gonna peel off the backing. Okay, now I know it's gonna be hard for you to see our little floating ornament template here, but I promise you it's there on my desk. And before I put it down, I have this little piece of parchment paper, and this is just gonna help me line it up before I permanently stick it to our transparency film. So I'm putting the parchment paper on top and then putting the design on top of that, leaving a bit of that stickiness over the edge. And this is going to be very tricky to see because it is transparent. So you can kind of lift the corner up a little bit there and make sure it's in the right place. All right, so that looks pretty good. So I'm going to press my finger down on that sticky edge, lift up the transfer tape here and pull out the parchment paper. The parchment paper will not stick to the transfer tape, and that's why it's such a great tool to use when you're trying to line up your designs. And then go ahead and press down your vinyl. You can use a scraper if you want to. And we're going to scrape that on there really well. And we'll peel this up, and we're going to try to peel the transfer tape off our transparency film. So this may be a little tricky because we are using strong grip tape. And there we go. That came off no problem, and this looks great. So I'm going to apply the rest of our vinyl decals to the rest of our transparency film, and then I'm going to show you how to insert these into your ornaments. And you can use that same piece of transfer tape over and over again until it stops being as sticky. Then you may want to get a new piece. But for these 6 ornaments here, this one piece should be enough. You can see some lines here on the camels that I forgot to weed. So you can go back in there with your weeding pen and pull out those pieces if you forgot any. Another way to weed all these designs would be to reverse weed. The way I did it was really tricky, especially with the type of vinyl I'm using. But if you wanted to, you could definitely reverse weed, and that may make your process a whole lot simpler. So the idea of reverse weeding is you will put your transfer tape on first. Before you weed it, you flip it upside down just like I have it here, and then you'll be able to see those lines a little clearer and pull out those pieces that you need to pull out. Just try not to get your fingers on the vinyl too much. I kind of did there. You can see my fingerprint because it will lose its stickiness. So try to just keep your fingers on the transfer tape rather than on the vinyl itself. So our ornament inserts are complete. I did mess up here. This one I didn't put on straight, but the rest of them look pretty good. So you're going to grab your empty ornament. Make sure you pop the cap off first, and then you're going to grab one of your inserts. We're going to roll this, and then just slide it in. And that just popped in there perfectly. Now, if you're having difficulty, you can use some tweezers to help you straighten it, but I had no problem at all with this one, and there's no adjustment needed. Now, if you wanted to, you can go ahead and pop your lid back right on. But you could also add another embellishment as well. If you wanted to, you could add more vinyl to the outside of your ornament, or you could fill your ornament with something. So you could add some chunky glitter or some faux snow. You could use shredded snow or sawdust or straw, or even some floral pieces. So I have this here. I think I'm gonna cut some of this up and put that in some of my ornaments, especially with the ones with the nativity, because it kind of fits. I would use straw, but I don't have any straw on hand, so I thought this would work well. For this one, I think I want to add a little shredded snow and see how that looks. So this shredded snow here is basically cut up pieces of plastic. So if you didn't want to run out to the dollar store and buy some of this, you could probably just make it yourself. If you have plastic laying around the house, just shred it up and you can stick it inside. I'm just using my finger here, but you could definitely use a funnel if you wanted to. I don't want to add too much snow here because I don't want to take away from the design, but I think this is looking pretty good. And let's put that top back on. And there we have our first ornament ready for the tree. So here are all my completed ornaments. I didn't do the one that I messed up centering. I just didn't like it, so I can always redo that one. So this one here has some chunky glitter that I just threw in there. And I left these ones just plain, and they look great just like this. They're just simple and elegant. And then this one has that plastic faux snow. And this one has some of that floral stuff cut up, and that looks really good as well. Let me know in the comments which one is your favorite. I hope you enjoyed today's project. For more Cricut Christmas crafts, go ahead and check out this playlist right here, and I hope to see you on more crafting adventures.